Hey, Gale Force, this is Seth Greenwood here, writer and creator of the Gale comic, and I'm joined by Angela Zhang, my co-host and also artist of Gale. Together we make Nine Muse, and also this week we're joined by Jordan Kirian again, who happens to be the letterer of Gale. Jordan, say hi.
Hello.
So, I don't
Angela,
get to say
how's
hi?
your week been? I was asking you. I said, how was your week?
My week has it's been all right. I think I told you guys I've been having a bit of an off week in terms of art and in terms of drawing Gale especially. And so this video is the first video setup where we can see all our beautiful faces. And on the background, you're going to see my my art process. And you're going to see me make a lot of mistakes. This is just one of those weeks where I felt like I couldn't sit down for more than 15 minutes at a time. And I'm not sure if either of you two experienced that before in your own creative writing stuff, where it's just like you're just kind of, I don't know, just you feel like a beginner again. And
distractions, and I'm easily distracted most of the time, so sometimes I can only sit down for like 15 minutes. I really love to write when I'm alone. I really have a hard time when there's people around me, and it's really hard when you kind of have someone there with you that is, you kind of feel like you're ignoring them when you're trying to do something that you want to do, and so I just love to be write by myself and find times to write when I'm by myself, and it usually helps me. But there are those times when I'm by myself when I can only write for 20 minutes at a time, the same way as art goes, because I'm not an artist, so guess we'll see that soon, huh?
A lot of times with me, I'll draw so if I'm working on Gordy, I'll draw one beak and I'll be like, okay, I'm a hero now. I can go watch a movie for 3 hours and fall asleep. And
so do you start with the beak?
Yes, actually with Gordy, I have to start with the beak. That's where it's anchored, because then everything else goes into proportion. Cool. And it's also to me the most intricate part. So I'm like, if I get this done first, the rest of it will be easy. So
yeah.
And Seth, did you you mentioned that you were starting a college course in writing? Do you want to talk a bit about that?
So yeah, I just started my week here at my semester here at Purdue Global, and my professor sent an email out to the class, and he said, well, I don't exactly recall everything the email said, but he said he basically referred to us as the writing community, and it immediately made me think back to Twitter, because I try to interact with the writing community on Twitter, and it just made me think of so many times when they've had these drunk Twitter parties, and they're always theming these drunk Twitter parties, and you're drinking and you have these tweets that you do. There's so many things, but there's so many very entertaining people, way more entertaining than I am, and way more creative than I am at thinking of things to do on Twitter. But I always engaged with the writing group on there, and everybody was just kind of drinking and doing their own thing, and telling everybody beforehand what they were going to get and stuff like that. So I was like, well, you know what, maybe this is an invitation from my professor, since we're a writing community, for me to come to my seminars drunk. And that's what I tweet, or well, I think I tweeted that out, or maybe I put it on Facebook, or I can't remember where I put it, but put it somewhere. But I thought that was crazy. So yeah, but I don't know, I just think that well, maybe there's a thing about drinking and writing, and everybody on the Twitter community, kind of having a Twitter party, but writers are notoriously known to drink while they write. And I was thinking about that earlier today, kind of because I was going over kind of the schedule that we put up, or they kind of you made for us, Angel. And I was I was thinking about it, and I know so many of these writers that have been drinkers over the like that I've studied. Like, I think what was it? Ernest Hemingway who was quoted saying, "Write drunk, edit sober." Was it
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, everybody, all these writers were like, are always like talking about drinking and stuff like that, and I just started thinking, I was like, there's no way that I can actually write and drink at the same time if we're being serious. I've when if I drink or if I get a little bit tipsy or something like that, I kind of start to kind of want to like be more energetic. I kind of want to associate with people, and it's like I can't just like get drunk by myself. You guys kind of understand that?
Yeah. What about you?
So, what about
We
me?
lagging?
No, I don't think so. Maybe.
Can you? Well, yeah. I was just wondering if we can get Jordan's perspective as another writer.
I'm gonna tell you, I have never. I've never written drunk. Well, I'll tell you guys right now. This is like gonna be a surprise to everybody, but like, I just like don't drink alcohol at all. So like, all my writing is completely sober.
Nice.
Maybe I don't know, but I'm not as famous as Ernest Hemingway, so maybe there's a secret to it. I will say that like when I was in college, there was a lot of drunk writing for my friends, and I don't think it ever went anywhere. So I don't know, but I think back then you're like drinking to be sad almost. Like I'm gonna drink until I get sad, and then we're gonna try to write some poetry.
I'm thinking about that today, because there was somebody who was like getting sober on Twitter, and he was it was a really sad post. But I kind of thought about it. I was like, I've been in a very positive attitude for the last year, and I remember when I wrote Gale, like a lot of times I was like in a very crummy mood, and I was like in a very dark place. But I wrote some of my best stuff when I was in a dark place,
Yeah.
and I was like, but you don't want to always be in a dark place, So it's like when you are in a better place, you I guess you kind of have to try a little bit harder to like get those emotions,
Yeah.
because Gale is a very dark comic. So especially like when I was writing The Void, oh, you don't you don't even want to know like what was going through my head when I thought of The Void, and when I thought of the Mama Seraphine and her characters and stuff like that. Like I was going through a pretty dark time in my life, and I don't even know why, because I'm it's kind of like I realized, like there's never been anything, too hard in my life to be that upset about. But I was I was just going through a dark phase, and now when I go back into it to write, it's a little bit harder now. It's not like I can't do it, but it's just a little bit harder to get those emotions.
Well, I think it's I think for me, I used to drink a lot when I was in college and I was younger, because I think in part it helped me deal with my social anxiety, because as you say, when you drink, you kind of feel more social, and I was just kind of a very shy, introverted person all through my life, and even now. But I think in terms of working on art, I never mix alcohol with that, just because I probably wouldn't be able to draw straight, and also I find that alcohol, it messes with my emotions, and I'd rather just be kind of even with my emotions when I'm drawing, so I can kind of concentrate and get the design and the layout right. So, but there was, I don't know if I should say this. I might cut this out later, but I'm just gonna say it. There was this one time where I accidentally ate a weed cake, and I drew a page of Gale. And I'll let you guys decide. I'll let you guys decide which one that is.
I would never be able to.
Oh, that's a good challenge.
I hope you ate. I hope it was the time where you drew like the well, I guess for those of you who haven't seen chapter 2, I won't describe it in great detail, but there's this part in chapter 2 where this girl she's being taken captive, and it's a really dark scene. She's being pretty much brainwashed to be Seraphine's minion. But that's all I'll say. Some of you don't even know who Seraphine is yet. So, but there is a part in there where she's being brainwashed, and you know what? I hope that you were eating that cake at that point in time, because that is a very awesome scene that you came up with.
Well, no, that it's not that one. That's not the one. But that was a very dark scene indeed, and it's just the stuff that you make me draw, Seth. It's unbelievable, but it's part of the story. It's part of the world. So
yeah. So you said like you said you've had an off drawing week, right?
yeah, and I mean, I just kind of. I wasn't going to put up this video because there's just a lot of start and stop, a lot of mistakes. I'm looking at it and kind of cringing. You guys can't see it right now, but you'll see it. But I just felt like nothing was coming together until maybe last night in the last hour. Everything kind of finally clicked. And I thought it was important to just show how messy and unpredictable the process can be, and just to not give up when you're feeling like it's maybe not your day or your week, right? I think it's important to just push through. And also when you're experiencing, when you're kind of, everything's kind of coming out not the way that you want, and you're getting frustrated, sometimes just go take a break, go take a walk if you can, visit some friends. And when you come back to it with fresh eyes, you'll find the groove again. But I guess it's just important. I thought it was kind of important just to show, okay, these are really bad videos that I'm putting together. I feel like they're very disjointed. But I don't want to make my process pretty, because I want to represent. I want to kind of really show what I do. So it might help someone.
But we've already talked about that. I guess kind of last week, everybody wants to show the best of them. We should always show the best of ourselves when we can, but we should always include the worst of ourselves too, just to kind of let people know, this is real. I mean, that's the way I feel about that.
Yeah, it's definitely a process, and showing those parts that don't look so good, or I don't know, it's natural, and I think it's important for people to see, because people do see art and think like, oh man, that was like one take or whatever, and I think that's what puts the distance between people trying a lot of the times, like, oh, I want to do this, but this person's like perfect.
Yeah,
and I think go ahead.
Well, I was just wanting to know, like, kind of spinning off from that, you've had an off week, and maybe like the stresses of life have like gotten to you. I know that when we talk about how I've started college and I still hold a full-time job, and I'm writing, I'm trying to write Gale every chance I get, and there's just like so much going on. I've got to keep up with social media. I mean, there's just so many things that go on in my day that I have to keep up with, and it's just like, how do you balance it all out? And then sometimes, maybe the stresses of life are like getting to you, and you kind of don't realize, and you kind of don't feel like drawing, or you kind of don't feel like writing because you have everything else to do. And it's just like, how do you actually balance it out? I feel like I balance it out very horribly. I think I've said that before on another podcast. I was like, well, sometimes I don't do everything I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
But how do you do it, Angela?
I think I've been thinking a lot about this lately, and I think when I was kind of starting my I guess artistic journey and career, if you will, towards the beginning I was working every day, right? Either on my personal projects or client work or Gale or something like that, just to kind of improve. This is recommended by teachers, industry pros. You just to be a good artist, you really just have to put in those 10,000 hours or whatever, right? It's just practice and practice to kind of improve and get better. And so I think for the first couple of years, I just worked nonstop, like weekends, evenings, and after a while, it really, I just kind of burnt out, right? I kind of burnt out creatively, and I kind of notice when I burn out, ideas aren't flowing. Like I have no idea. It feels like, and it also feels like such a chore to even pick up a pencil or my Wacom. And yeah, I guess it just, I don't want to sound like I'm complaining because, I do love what I do, but at the same time, the reality is, sometimes if you do it too much, you get burnt out and then you can't, and then sometimes it's like, I just couldn't bring myself to do any work for a week. Now with client projects, it's easy because you have a deadline and you have to make it. But with personal projects, which I still think it's important to do, like on my Instagram, I do sketchbook stuff that helps me kind of improve and grow in my own way. And Gale, which is kind of I guess it's a very complex side project. I don't want to call it just a side project, but it's a very complex project with lots of moving parts and people involved. And but the thing with Gale is it doesn't have a set deadline, and I think I'm pretty grateful to you, Seth, that we've been able to do Gale in a flexible way, so that we can still enjoy it. And I think that's really important, like kind of doing it on our own terms and at our own pace. And I found that recently, I'm really adamant now about taking breaks, like regular breaks, especially on weekends. In the summer, I think this is the first summer where I took Saturday and Sunday off so I can go biking or swimming. And, and we talked about this too, Seth, where
telling me that you sit in front of a computer like all day long, and like sometimes you sit in front of the computer for it's like an unhealthy amount of hours that you sit in front of the computer. And sometimes it's just like a little bit of freedom just to get out and go for a run or something like that. And I know you like going out and biking and doing outdoorsy stuff, but it's just like your whole life revolves around art and being in front of a computer. And I know you love it, but it's just like sometimes you have to do things so much that you love so much that you kind of end up hating it sometimes, but you hate it so much that you love it. And it's just, all of these emotions that come in. It's like, there's so many times that I've sat down to write and it's like, oh, I hate this. And it's like, but why do I keep doing it? It's like when I'm running, sometimes I hate it that I have to go running or something like that. But it's like, why do I do it? It's because I actually love it, and it keeps me coming back. And there's just this weird thing about practice that people hate to do, but then they like to compete. So it's just like when I'm writing, it's like I hate to write sometimes, but then when it's finished, it seems like I've won something. It seems like I'm accomplishing something, and that's kind of the way I feel about that.
Yeah, and I also think that so actually what kind of made me think of this was I was tagged in this post this week by a friend, and he kind of quoted this thing which said, like, when you're creative, you have to keep creating or else you're gonna die. And I thought, and at the beginning it's just like, a couple of years ago I would be like, yeah, like it's at the beginning, it's just like, yeah, you need that motivation, and I like that kind of extreme, like talk. I like that because it gets you pumped. But I think right now, I just think that perhaps there's too much hustle porn out there where it's just like, hard work, until your eyes bleed and things like that. And I actually don't think that's very practical. And in my own experience, I think you need to be a human. You need to be happy. And I think in order to do that, and as well as be a creative, you need to be a well-rounded person. That means not just sitting at your computer and drawing all day, because it just loses meaning if you're not acquiring new experiences and going out and observing the world, and having some distance from your work. I don't think that's particularly healthy, and I don't think it's particularly worked for me in the past. And I think if you tie your identity too much into being a creative, like, I don't know, I just don't think that's necessarily the healthiest approach. I think you need to have a bit of distance from your work so that you can improve and critique it, and also just kind of do it in a more emotionally sustainable way.
Yeah, have one foot in the known and one foot in the unknown. Basically, half of the time, you're in your comfort zone, but the other half of the time you're out there trying to push forward into something unknown, and trying to accomplish something that might not even ever happen, but you have to try it. There's a risk versus reward gain, or a risk versus the reward gained thing going on right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say one thing that Angela said that I think is really important, and I would say to like people who are really starting to get involved in their art and stuff, it is important to work a lot, but I think you said earlier that you kind of have that burnout, and we kind of have this view that we have to work every single day, but I think that if you don't allow yourself that space, if you don't take like one day off, like I take like a day off a week. I usually get my stuff finished, and then I'll like take a bit of a lap. And I think if you don't do that, you're going to pay. And you talk about this burnout. I think you're going to have, sometimes you'll have like a week where you just don't want to do stuff. So if you don't take that one day off, you pay by not being able to do something for a week. And it's like in the end, it's way better to just take that one day off, go out and do something you enjoy, and then you're not going to have to pay for it later. I think it's an important thing that we don't talk about.
Yeah, and I was wondering if you guys experience this with writing, but do you find that if you push too hard, like beyond a limit, you kind of reach this point of diminishing returns, that like the harder you work, you're not actually even achieving any results?
All the time. Yeah.
All the time, yeah.
But I mean, I just go on to, if I'm trying to write something and I can't figure something out, I'm not saying every time I do this, because sometimes I'm not a perfect human being at all. Sometimes I just get fed up and stop, but in those moments where I actually feel better, and I actually have the right mindset, I won't just write on something that I'm trying to, like, I won't just write on the script. Like, I will go back and I will try to, like, plan something else out, or write something else out, and or write something that I'm interested in at the time, because I think it might be like you want to write, or you want to draw a certain page, right? But it's just not coming to you, right? So you go to maybe another page, and that would, I think that's what you said. It's kind of what you said about webtoons. Like, you felt like you had to go in some kind of sequential order all the time, and you couldn't just mix it up a little bit, right? Did you ever say that?
Yeah,
or am I just imagining?
No, I think I said that maybe on our first podcast. I can't remember, but I'm loving our the current process I have, where I'll just draw like a bulk of pages at once and kind of work on them sequentially. I do have a goal of completing at least 2 a month, but keep drawing. And the layout part is actually like the thumbnailing and layout part where I'm figuring out where the text is going to go and where the characters are going to go and so on. Like that's the hardest part because that's the kind of actual creative part. Like the painting part usually is the easiest. Like in this video where I'm rendering, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, just shading it in. Like that part's kind of downhill, except for this week. That's why this is a particularly bad week. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I think sometimes if you feel stuck doing something else, especially something that you're excited about or interested in, like another piece of writing or even like another sketch or project like that kind of helps you get over the hump. And I think that you do need to kind of rest your eyes from what you're working at, what you're currently working on. And when you come back to it, it's like, I don't know, it's like you synthesize ideas subconsciously. And then once you have a rest from whatever you were stuck with, it just comes together when you do take that break. So.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I was trying to say. So, like, I'll be working on, a certain page, and I know it's in some kind of line of, what I'm going to need to submit to you next when you get to that point. Like, I try to work in a sequential order, but there's some things that are coming up that I get ideas about, and you've seen things like I will give you dialogue from something that I haven't even written yet, right? And so that's the kind of things that I'm talking about. Like I'm a dialogue guy. I love like hearing my characters speak in my head. So I will go ahead and write out the dialogue of certain characters where I know what's going to happen in the future, because it'll get me back into that creative mood, and I know that is where I want to focus on at that point in time, and I'll write it down and have it there for later. That way it keeps me in a creative mindset, but it's not actually working on the script. It's not actually getting a lot of things done, not something I should be doing, but it keeps me creative.
Hey Jordan, I was curious. I kind of know Seth's writing process a bit because we talked about it a lot. But what's your writing process like? Do you actually write outlines? Do you have like character arcs?
Yeah. So what I do is I write. I have a notebook. I write everything. The first draft, I write everything by hand because when I write, it's more of a short form writing. So I jog down the ideas of the scene and stuff, and then you put out the dialogue. Yeah, and so you kind of, and when it comes to characters, you just kind of write. I write kind of their general, who they are and what defines them, and then a little bit of what they're going to do. When I'm writing Gordy, though, for example, it's almost all just it's almost all just dialogue because it's like, okay, it's got to be kind of quick so I can capture this idea. So yeah, it's sort of a quicker process. I just have to get this idea down so I can start drawing now while I have this idea in my head. Because a lot of the times now that I draw these jokes, a lot of the times I also know what I want them to look like. So I have to make my writing process a little more streamlined for myself so I can capture that feeling I had when I had the idea.
So we've talked a little bit about the writing process, and so you said last week that you love to do everything by yourself, basically.
Yeah, more or less.
Have you had some bridges, or have you had some people burn bridges for you? Have you had like a hard road involved with the collaboration?
Let's just say I live on an island, Seth. There are no bridges around me. Now, what happened was it's just not as easy all the time to find people who are committed around me, because like almost everybody that I talk to in person at conventions and stuff is like really they're really game for it when it starts, but then when you really start the process. Like I've never had a collaboration last as long as you guys have worked together. I think it's just like I am really excited. The other person thinks they're excited because they're like, ooh, comics. And then they start working on it and they're like, oh, comics. So then I don't know. It's not like I dislike working with people, but now I'm just so used to it, like being the only one with that level of passion, that I'm just like, okay, I'll just do this for now. And, because, to say, maybe in 5 years or so, who's to say I could be working on something where I'm doing the writing and having somebody else do the drawing. But this is just where I am right now. But it's just a commitment thing and a level of excitement and passion that you have to have, and most people pretty quickly find out they don't have it.
Right. Yeah. So, hard truth, Angela. What's it like to collaborate with me? So,
Uh,
like the good and the. Go ahead, say it. The good and the bad.
okay. Well, I wouldn't say it's. I think at the beginning we had, I guess, a few differences, right? I think our styles are very different, and actually, I think we talked about this before on the Quill interview or something like that, where I
Right.
think that you're more kind of get this out now and let's do this now and just kind of jump in, right? You're more, I guess, aggressive, for a lack of a better word, and I'm more kind of reserved in the sense of, no, let's think this through before we push it out and work it through. So I think we just had very different approaches on how we wanted to present ourselves and Gale, and I think we kind of maybe rubbed up the wrong way because of that. But I think the good part, definitely working with you, is that you're open to dialogue and you actually listen to other people's thoughts and feedback. So I think in cases like this, it could be very easy to be egotistical and just be like my way or the highway, and screw you. So like at the beginning, I always thought, okay, and the other thing is, I hate confronting people. I really do. Like, I'd rather like just not talk about things and confront people about things that perhaps I see that are maybe we should. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's hard for me to confront people. Like, I think I'm a very agreeable person, but I think sometimes I just think, okay, we really need to kind of bring this back a bit. And I always felt like, oh my god, if I tell them this, there's always this risk that it's all going to fall apart. But I think every time that I've brought something up to you, we've discussed it in a really mature way. And I think our communication and our friendship really grew as a result of that. And I feel like because of that honesty and that trust that we built, I feel very safe going to you about things that maybe I'm concerned about or that I'm thinking about. And I think. And I think I told you guys this in chat, that I really appreciate just the both of you, because I think out of all the people that I've met so far who said that they wanted to do comics or they have this idea for comics, is like you, Jordan, and Seth, you really stuck it out. And I think it's both of your persistence, and that's kind of kept me going, because there are times where I'm drawing and Jordan, I can relate to your artist. It's just like, what the hell did I get myself into? But
Yeah.
but now it's and we talked about this too, where especially this week, when I feel like, oh my god, like maybe I'm not an artist, maybe I can't draw at all. It just felt like I was just like doing absolute crap.
That's
And
so not true.
but you get like that, right? Sometimes when it's just not
I
going
know.
your way, it's not coming as easy.
Well, I've been thinking about that this week. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
and
I can't write. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm not a writer. I know exactly what you're saying.
yeah, and I think it's important to have people that kind of share your passion uh, to help you realize and to kind of get through those times, right? I think I'm really thankful that I don't have to go through this alone, because yeah, I like my mind. I have a mind that like my worst enemy is my mind. I think I'm just
Yeah.
very neurotic. I have all this self-defeating thoughts, and maybe that's true for a lot of creatives. I don't know, but yeah. So I'm thankful to at least have you two to talk to about these things, and you get it too.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you one thing that is proof that we are going in the right direction, and that is the email that I got today, or that we got today, and that I sent in the group chat today. So, Angela, would
Yeah.
you tell our audience about that?
Oh yes. So after many months of waiting, Gale is finally going to be on Comixology. It will be available on August 7th. Is that right? So we got into
That
it.
is right.
This is, I think, a big win for us because for many years it was just a few loose pages and a dream and an idea. But I just find that now we're in stores. And it's like, I don't know, like for me, this is like a huge win. I mean, like,
If you
yeah.
can imagine, if you can imagine someone like like sitting at their desk, a grown man trying not to bawl like a baby. That was me today. I was like, "Oh my god!" It's actually like, we got the letter or the email saying that it was going to be, but then we were like, "Well, when is it going to be?" And I researched it, and I was like, "Well, it should be 2 to 3 weeks." So then now a couple of weeks later, it's like it's actually they sent us an email back saying exactly when it's actually going to be out, and it's going to be August 7th, and that's going to be awesome. And they gave us a little hyperlink and everything, so and they told us how to share it on social media, and of course they said to follow them. Of course, but we will. Yeah, we'll definitely follow Comixology because that's really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
was
yeah.
gonna say that I don't know. Yeah, it's great news to hear that. I'm so happy and proud for you guys. Just seeing this whole thing go along the whole time, and because like this is what's crazy about Comixology is like anybody in the world now can read that. And you could on the internet, but like Comixology is like a central hub, so people go there when they're looking for. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna go to 5 different websites and maybe I'll find something. It's like this is Comixology, so that's really cool. So like somebody in any part of the world could get on Comixology that day and just, I mean, that's great. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and I really love. I really love it because really, well, honestly, you have to meet standards to get there. But if you meet I mean, their standards aren't you know too awful hard to meet. If you're creating comics and you're trying to do it professionally, right? Um, so I think anybody who's starting out with comics should definitely at least start there, and then work their way up because that is a place where you can actually start to try to gain some type of capital,
Yeah.
and use it for, because if you could go to Kickstarter, um, and you could print, just as easy, getting support from Kickstarter, and we're still going to have to use Kickstarters. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, why wouldn't you go to as many places as you can to generate, enough funding for you to actually print? And the more funding you have, the bigger the print run can be, right? And the more cons you can go to, and the more people that you can sell to online, and and just so I'm thinking right now, and you guys can correct me if you have a different view, but if you start digital, first, because you don't have a lot of resources, and you start digital first, you can start making that money
Mm.
to get to where you want to be. Because I know that Angela and I both, we want to be in print. That is our whole goal for any of this, is we want to print, quality comics where every panel is a painting, and that's what we set out to do. So this whole webtoon stop was great. It was fun, and we met some great people. And it's just like it's a train, right? You stopped off at Webtoons, you met some great people, you gained a little bit of interest, and I still talk to a couple of people that followed Gale from Webtoons, and at least one person in particular that's still on Webtoons, creating Webtoons, and they said today, and they're from India, and they said today that they were really excited to see, that we had this podcast going on, because they were really excited to see what different route we were taking Gale, and that kind of made me feel like, well, we're pulling somebody else from Webtoons, that they're not just going to stay with Webtoons, they're going to come with us. And that really, even if it's one person, it really like kind of made me feel like, well, that's a success, and so we're meeting people along as we go. So we meet people as we start Patreon, and as we start Gumroad, and as we have our social media, and we're posting Gale Chapter 1 on Instagram, and Gale Chapter 2 on Instagram, and we meet new people all the time. Or we do a comic for Red Stillo, and we meet so many other creators, and and we interact with them on well, now sometimes me on a weekly basis, I interact with a lot of people. Rachel, I actually interact with Rachel Persephone. I support her on Patreon, and I interact with her every week, or at least once or twice a week. Sometimes I don't, but she's like one of my favorite artists now, and she did so well with the cover, and with all of the all of the different cover pieces for all of the different projects in Cosmic Love. And it's just like, we have met so many people since we started this, and it's because of all of these people that we have continued on, and that we are doing what we're doing. And it's because of all these people that we are at where we're at now, whether it was because of financial funding, or whether it was because of just seeing what they're doing and being inspired by them. Any and all of that, the sky's the limit with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I agree. Rachel's work is absolutely gorgeous and amazing. Everyone should go follow her on Instagram. I'll link it in the YouTube comments below. And if she is at all interested, I would love to have her on and pick her brain about her process and the themes that really inspire her. And Seth, I feel like this year, I feel like we're finding the right places for Gale, because I think in the past we did a lot of trial and error. How do we get people interested? How do we get ourselves out there? I don't think Webtoons was exactly right for what we want to do, and I don't think it's exactly right for the kind of story that we want to tell and the way that we want to tell it. Again, Gale is a much slower paced comic, and with very, I just want to kind of take my time with the art, and I don't think that's really works very well on Webtoons, which has a much faster pace and a bigger demand. And I think going kind of the publishing, Kickstarter, crowdfunding route, and creating content like this podcast, I love doing it because it's fun. I get to see Jordan, I get to see Seth, and actually, Jordan, I feel like I'm getting to know you for real, because I mean, I've known you for years through your work and through your blog and through various these quick social media interactions, but just seeing you and listening to your voice, and oh my god, I just loved everything that you said in the last podcast. There's just so many little nuggets of wisdom in there. So yeah, I think, like you said, Seth, I think it's the people that, not to be super cheesy, but it's truly the people that make the lonely comic journey great. Because because something I've been thinking about is, man, it is really not cool being a middle-aged person with a dream of drawing pictures, for a comic, and it's just so cool to meet other people who are just as passionate and maybe slightly crazy, to kind of walk this journey with. So,
You think I'm crazy?
no doubt. What do you mean? I think I know you
Uh,
can't.
it's true. Um, yeah. So, I think that I will let Jordan go ahead and introduce. Since this was his idea, I'll
Ooh.
think I'll let him introduce the next topic. We were thinking about, well, earlier this week. I put out a post, several posts on several different like social media sites of like, hey, what do you guys want us to do? It's not that we can run out of ideas. Like we can always find something to talk about, right? It's not going to be a problem. Um, but I wanted to know what the audience wanted, and you know what? Jordan is actually, even though he's part of the program because he's been on like well at least twice now, I guess. Yeah, he was on last week and this week, but you know he's even though he's our letterer, he's part of our audience too, right? So he was like, hey, how about you guys do like an Elseworld kind of project? And I was like, what is that? Like, but I knew what an Elseworld project was, but I was like, what do you mean? Like, and he was like, well, how about you become the artist and Angela become the writer? And well, never mind. I just gave it away. So not too much. But go ahead and
Well,
give them the idea.
yeah. So my idea was, I just thought it'd be kind of interesting to see the perspective. The idea, is to switch up uh, creative duties. One person who is typically the writer doing the art, and one person who's typically the artist doing the writing. Because to me, I just saw that post and I was just like, oh, to be honest, part of me was like, what's something I can say that's like kind of far fetched that I don't know that they'll do, but it would be kind of really funny and interesting if they did. And that came up, and I was just like, oh, because the thing to me is like the creative process on both of those sides looks so different in your mind. So I was like, oh man, what would? And then I started thinking like, what would Gale look like, or if Angela was writing and if Seth you were drawing. So I just think it'd be a funny challenge, or not necessarily funny. I think it'll probably turn out funny, but
It will definitely turn out funny, and you know why? Because
yeah,
I,
I just thought
I
I just
draw
thought
characters out of the word boy. So
that's the secret to art. You gave away the whole secret to art. Oh my!
ah.
You put me out of a job.
Yeah,
Angela's out of a job.
yeah.
Uh,
Thanks, Seth.
so
Sorry.
I just thought it would be an interesting challenge to see how things would work if the roles were reversed. I don't know. I just think it'd be interesting because, from my point of view, like since I do both of those things now, I don't know. Like because I'm sure I think about scenes differently than you two. Writing them
Yeah.
and picturing them and laying them out.
You're also trying to, like, when you do that, I kind of think it's very I don't know. I think it's trying to make someone get out of their creative comfort zone, right?
Yeah,
So
and
if
that's
I can get
important.
out and do art and try to do art at least, because I don't know anything about it, and but if I can try to do something that I'm not comfortable with, and we can try to switch roles, I can kind of feel some kind of empathy for what she goes through, and she can feel some kind of empathy for what I go through, and then I can understand the process a little bit more, and she can understand the process a little bit. But she's going to do way better than I'm going to do.
Well, let me tell
And
you
like,
this.
I mean, I've already seen what she can write, like how she writes and things like that. And sometimes I'm like, wow, maybe she's a better writer than I am, but she never thinks that. So I don't know.
Well, I say the whole thing
I'm
for the
talking about you like
challenge.
not here, Angela.
The whole thing.
But you called like
The
my
whole.
writing style like a gonzo writing style.
I like that. Gonzo.
Yeah.
When did I say that?
Oh, in regards to like my logging voice, it's like a gonzo journalist or something. But
Oh,
Oh
I didn't
yeah, well
mind
the
that.
one
But
thing that you did. You didn't like that?
no, I didn't mind it at
You
all.
just don't like.
It's just funny that that's
Oh,
what.
you didn't mind it?
Yeah. No, I didn't mind it. I had to actually Google like what that meant, but then I'm like, okay, yeah, I can live with that. I don't think honestly I'm
that
not
might
like
be. Well, I was just saying that might be because That might be the Gonzo journalist thing might be an American concept because of Hunter S. Thompson. That might, I don't know if that. I wonder if if that's a concept other parts of the, because like when you say Gonzo, that's what I think of. Like, but I wonder if
Yeah.
that's I've never thought about that.
Well,
So you actually agree with me, Jordan?
Do I agree that? Oh no, I was just saying that I knew what you meant when you say Gonzo because I was like, oh, Hunter S. Thompson, but she had to Google it, so I'd have to read.
Well, and I'm not saying that her writing style is always like that. I think that I read a blog one day, and that's what I made the reference to. Because I mean, not every blog you write is going to be a Gonzo style blog.
Yeah.
But I said, the blog that I read was kind of Gonzo style, and I don't know, like really, the Gonzo style basically is you. You actually go and try to report on something from a personal experience, and you try to live the same way that somebody else is living. And
we do want to kind of end this on time within an hour. Maybe I had some questions for Jordan around, I guess, what we're doing next week. And one of
Sure.
so one of the things, so when I first saw your idea, I thought it was sort of taking a page from Gale, and just kind of describing it in my own words. But then, all three of us kind of got talking before the podcast that perhaps it could be kind of there's a different route that we could go, and if you could elaborate on that a bit, so we know just what to expect.
Sure. So, originally my idea was what you were talking about, kind of like taking a page and writing what you see and translating it. But we were kind of talking off and on throughout the weekend. If the big bump that you might have there is being too familiar with each other's work, because the whole point of this exercise in my mind is like you do see different perspectives and different angles when you're doing one or the other. Like when I started drawing, I would like read scripts, or I started writing scripts that I was like, okay, now I can visualize this space a little better. This is particularly effective with like dialogue, and I don't want to go off on a tangent, but like a lot of times when I started writing comics, a lot of times my dialogue was like way too much dialogue per panel, and you don't have that space. I didn't have the spatial awareness that I do now because of drawing them. So my thought was, just giving each other those tools to see through the other person's point of view. So doing a page of Gale might be hard because I do think that like your art is so such a big thing that like when I think of Gale, I think of the art. So I don't know. I don't know if you guys would be interested in maybe trying like Angela writing like a small original thing, or if you'd want to, or if Angela, you would want to take an older page of Gale that we're not as like, that isn't as fresh in our minds, and then looking at that and being like, this is how I would write the scene, and then it's almost like a game of telephone, I guess. And then Seth drawing that scene. I don't know. What do you guys think would be the more interesting thing for you? I think, or the thing that you would be able to do the best. I guess I don't know.
I know the original.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was actually sorry. I think there's a bit of lag, but how about I'll go and then you could go, Seth.
That's fine.
So so when I kind of first saw this idea presented in chat, I really liked your idea, Jordan, of telephone, because and I immediately thought of doing a page that like all three of us are obviously familiar with Gale because we work on it, but just taking a page, but me rewriting it in a way that could be perhaps misinterpreted or reinterpreted. So then, so my idea was I kind of write it, but I don't show Seth because I think Seth would just know immediately. But I think Jordan, you have a bit more distance because obviously you're not the writer, and you haven't been staring at these pages for 20 hours in a row editing it or whatnot. So I thought like I would write something, like choose a page that that could be open-ended, maybe change the character's name, change the details a bit, or I'm not sure yet. And then I would pass that to you, and you would interpret that in art form, and then Seth would interpret your drawing, right? So that it is like telephone. You're kind of whispering to the other person. So when it gets back to Seth, it might be something completely different.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
Idea.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a good solution, I think, to being too familiar with the art, like I was talking about. I think that's a good plan. Yeah,
that is an awesome plan. Well, at first we weren't going to involve all three of us because he was just talking about us two. But it's funny because we told it to you, and you're like, well, you know what? We should it's Jordan's idea. We should just he's going to get the idea and get it to us, and he can just do it too. So there you go. We involve all three of us, and it's the telephone game. So yeah, I like that. That's really.
Yeah, and I also think it's more kind of reasonable to accomplish this because I think it's hard to kind of start from scratch, and I think it's a lot easier to work from a base. I'm just thinking this from like a time perspective, and I am trying to finish off a lot of stuff, with Gale and doing this podcast too, which I love, but it's that's kind of limits my time a bit. So I think doing something that I'm already familiar with, that the world is already there. It's just how can I reword it in a way that kind of tricks Jordan into thinking it's something else, and then when it gets back to Seth, it's like, what is this?
That's awesome. Yeah, I love it. I'm looking so forward to this.
Now, I will say right off the bat that my art is not anywhere near as developed as yours, so it's gonna be different,
So it's gonna be going from the master to well, let's just say your art and her art are very different, and then my art is basically non-existent. So. It's just gonna be very entertaining. So I really look forward to it.
Yeah.
But it looks like we're kind of running out of time. So Jordan, thank you again for actually coming on the show again. And you are, like I said, we don't expect to, basically take you hostage and make you a part of every show. We would never do that to you, but you are just as part of 9U's and the Gale team as anyone else. You are our letterer. We do pay you.
That's right. This is a paid appearance.
Yeah, there you go. No, this is not a paid appearance.
We don't want to set that standard for guests.
No, not every, because then we'll never have you on again because we can't afford you. But you're welcome on as many times as you want to be, and you definitely make the show very entertaining and bring a lot of, a different perspective in for somebody who, me and her, like me and Angela, we communicate all the time, so we basically know what each other are going to say. Well, Angela doesn't ever know what I'm going to say. Nobody does. But I basically know Angela. Angela knows me. And then we bring somebody in who's been following Gale from the outside because we both know the story pretty well, and you only read the story a page at a time as you get it. So it's really cool to see someone else's ideas from the outside, and then see how we discuss everything as well together. All of us coming together. You bring a lot of great ideas from the outside.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate being on here. It's fun when you guys have me on, just to get to talk about stuff like that. And I do like to work on this stuff. Like I talk about working on alone or whatever. But like we said earlier, it is about working with people. And this is part of the reason I go to conventions when I do, because you get to meet people who are like, oh, you like this thing? I love this thing. Let's talk about it. And so every now and then, it's like, okay, I've been working for hours at a time just by myself. So it is nice to be able to step back and have that perspective with other. So so it's nice to be on here because I think I said last week, we talked about kind of existing in a vacuum. So it is nice to step away from my drawing desk and be here and be able to talk to you guys about all these different elements of comics, because it is kind of hard to find people who want to talk about creation of comics. They, because a lot of times it's it's like, oh, did you read Batman or did you read Spider-Man? But it's like, I want to go beyond that. I want to talk about, what went into this panel, what went into this sentence, whatever. So it's really nice to be able to do that and have that platform to express that. And yeah, I mean, I'll be on here as often as I can. Towards the end of the week, I'm almost done with Gordy, so I have a lighter schedule because I do like 1 week of Gordy a week. Yeah. So it's been a lot of fun the last couple times I'm on here, and listening to the podcast. It's great because I listen to the podcast while I work, and I'm just like, wow, did I really say that? Like, that sounds like it makes a little sense. Like, that can't be me, but yeah, I like it a lot.
And sometimes I'm like, I wished I wouldn't have said that.
Well, it's on the internet, buddy. It's on the internet forever.
Yeah.
Let it be. Yeah. But yeah, I really appreciate you. Like I said, I really appreciate you coming on. And Angela, I know this was kind of like our idea. I know that we've been trying to do it for a while, and there's been a lot of things that we've started and actually not kept up with, but have actually already gotten to the point where I've I've quit on other things. I've gotten that feeling like where I wanted to be like, okay, well, I don't have time this week, but then I've because I'm in college and everything like that, and I'm actually was like, just like, let's just do it, right? Because this is something that's actually fun for me to do, and something that's necessary, and something that even if life gets in the way, I'm still doing it. I have that, and so thank you for actually coming in and helping me do something like this for our audience, and sticking with me. And I just wanted to thank you for doing that. Thank you for the Gale Force out here wants to go ahead and like this video and subscribe to our channel. That would be much appreciated. And we will look forward to seeing you next week when we have our show about the Elseworld experience.
All right. Take care, everyone. We'll see you soon.